The monthly board meeting of the Shell Rock River Watershed District for April 8th, 2025 is now called to order. Will you please call roll?
Manager Bakken.
Here.
Manager Hanson.
Aye.
Manager DeBoer.
Here.
Manager Kramer.
Here.
Manager Lee.
Here.
Manager Pasuski.
Here.
Manager Delter.
Here. On to item number 2, public forum. Do not see anyone here today again, so we'll go on to item number 3. Approval of the agenda. Are there any additions, corrections, or deletions?
Chair, we do have one addition, and that would be under upcoming meetings. We would add a B, a special board meeting
Okay,
to the agenda.
and that's all we have. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda with the addition of the special meeting?
So,
Second. By
I'm not done too slow.
Lee Pasuski.
Manager DeBoer and Manager Pasuski. Second.
It would be Lee and
Lee? Oh, okay. Started.
Slow down, guys, slow down. At this point, Lee,
It's early in the morning. Lee then, okay. Any discussion? Hearing none, will you please call roll?
Manager Bakken.
Aye.
Manager Hanson.
Aye.
Manager DeBoer.
Aye.
Manager Kramer.
Aye.
Manager Lee.
Aye.
Manager Pasuski.
Aye.
Manager Delter.
Aye, motion carried. Item number 4, consent agenda. Following items will be acted upon without discussion in accordance with the staff recommendation and associated documents unless a manager requests opportunity for discussion. A, minutes of the March 11th, 2025 Shell Rock River Watershed District Regular Board Meeting. B, March 2025 Treasurer's Report, subject to audit. C, March 2025 Project Fund Treasurer's Report, subject to audit. D, authorized payment of claims. E, authorized payment of project fund disbursements, and F, quarterly transfers. Do I have a motion to approve as is? So, by Manager Kramer, do I have a second? Second. By Manager Pasuski. Any discussion? Hearing none, will you please call roll?
Manager Bakken.
Aye.
Manager Hanson.
Aye.
Manager DeBoer.
Aye.
Manager Kramer.
Aye.
Manager Lee.
Aye.
Manager Pasuski.
Aye.
Manager Delter.
Aye, motion carried. Item number 5, project and program manager, Courtney Phillips.
Thank you. Good morning. The first item I have is a motion to approve a contract with Carp Solutions for the Goose Lake Fish Barrier. The first item in your agenda packet is the agreement, which is item B, but at the end of that agreement, you will find item A, which is that agreement with Carp Solutions. We saved paper, so we did them all in once. But this is for $119,750 was the quote that was received. It might change slightly based on shipping costs. But we are looking at putting in a low voltage system on the existing site where we have the Goose Lake Fish Barrier. That is a high voltage system where we were having those flow issues. This is low voltage and it involves kind of fingers going into the water to create a low voltage current. We're hoping that that will decrease the mortality that we were seeing with the high voltage system and preventing carp from getting into the Goose Lake system.
Okay, do I have a motion? So moved. By Manager Hanson, do I have a second? Second. By Manager Kramer, is there any discussion?
I just want to point out that I will get to funding it in item B.
Right, so was this the one that we had all the problems with?
That is correct.
Okay. And what was the logic behind the solution?
We looked at a couple of different solutions. One was a physical barrier, and this is the low voltage system. A physical barrier, we feel like it would have been a maintenance headache. There's a lot of cattails that kind of get flushed through that system and debris, and it would have always been a headache as far as maintenance, as far as cleaning that out. So we looked at this low voltage option. It's relatively new that's coming out of the cities. Prajemic is the one who is working with it with Carp Solutions. It's been favorable in the places that they've installed it at. So we're going that route. We have all of the electric components out there already. So utilities are out there.
It'd be pretty simple, really, by looking at what there's there. Almost too simple.
It seems To the best of my knowledge, it's something that we will, at the end of the season, take out and then put back in the spring. That'll help with the effective life of the electronic or, the electrodes. I don't know if that's the right term. But having a longer use for the electrodes that are in place, by removing them.
Thank you.
Any more discussion? Are you gonna add on to this one or the next one you're doing?
Add on as far as this. I'm just saying item B on the agenda is discussing power funding.
Right, okay.
But when you say low voltage, what's voltage? You know,
I do not have that answer. That would be a question. I can discuss with Mike and get back to you on that.
Probably can't be too much because if you grab a hold of like 24 volts and in some water, you feel it.
Yeah, I wonder if, I was gonna say it might have it on there.
Stick it on your tongue, you feel it. Okay. So it's not real. Roughly.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it and it's not giving the readouts of what the voltage is. It says the conductivity of the water, but I can reach out and get that information back to you.
So my second question would be any liability with the voltage?
I would assume it's under the same as what our high voltage system is. And we would work with insurance to get that taken care of.
What's gonna happen to my dog when he jumps in there?
That's why we have it,
There should go, get away.
we have it adequately signed. And
I think my dog can read that. It's good.
It's just a risk with any of our fish barriers.
I don't think it wouldn't kill
Um,
them, just my knowledge.
Yeah.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, will you please call roll?
Manager Buckman,
Aye.
Manager Hanson.
Aye.
Manager DeWart.
Aye.
Manager Kramer.
Aye.
Manager Lee.
Aye.
Manager Besuski.
Aye.
Manager Delcher.
Aye, motion carried.
Thank you. The next item is the motion to enter into grant agreement with Freeborn County. The Freeborn County does have funds that are used for aquatic invasive species, and rockfish fall underneath that category. So I reached out to them to work together to help fund this project. So they approved $60,000 of their funding to go towards this project. And so that is the first item that you see in your handout is the agreement that already went to the Freeborn County Board. We spoke to them at a workshop, they approved it. So now it's coming to our board. It's a reimbursement style funding, so we need to spend it first, then we will get reimbursed. The other half of the funding, or the remainder, is coming from Lassard Sam's Outdoor Heritage Council. We made an amendment with some funding that we had to include this in, it'll be fully covered by the county and grant funding. So we need a motion to enter into that grant with Freeborn County.
So I have a motion. By Manager Lee, do I have a second? Second. Or Manager DeWar, any discussion?
I was at the meeting last Tuesday where they did approve this, so it's all ready to go.
Good. Any other discussion? Hearing none, please call roll.
Manager Buckman.
Aye.
Manager Hanson.
Aye.
Manager DeWart.
Aye.
Manager Kramer.
Aye.
Manager Lee.
Aye.
Manager Besuski.
Aye.
Manager Delcher.
Aye, motion carried.
Thank you. The next item is a motion to approve a curly leaf management contract. This is the Solitude Services Agreement that you see in your board packet. This is for $32,200 and it will be spraying Main Bay and East Bay or Edgewater Bay. So we sent Solitude basically, ISG did a survey of where the curly leaf was last year, so we sent them the results of that survey to Solitude to base a quote off of that. This is for one treatment. I know there was talked about two, but this is for one. If curly leaf is over 50% of the bay in any given lake body, that's when they do two sprayings, but because it's less than 50%, they say one should suffice. So again, it's for Edgewater Bay and Main Bay. Mike also did reach out to other lake management companies to get a second quote. However, they were so busy that they're not even taking on new clients. They won't even look at it. So that was two other companies that turned him away. Solitude does a lot of management activities in Minnesota. They're familiar with the process, and they are the ones who are actually soliciting permits for this project. And I spoke with them yesterday, and they are in the beginning processes of getting those permit steps completed. I do want to point out that we had the attorney review the services agreement and there was some slight revisions from the version that you see printed. But we have the updated copy that will get approved and sent off. So there was some slight contractual changes with this document. Looking for a motion to approve.
So moved.
By Manager Kramer, do I have a second?
Second.
By Manager Krasuski, any discussion? How are they going to apply this?
As far as I know, it'll be via boats with granular.
Granular state.
That's to the best of my knowledge. We did look at options such as physical removal and those costs were astronomical compared to the spraying. So there were other alternatives that we looked at.
Thank you for getting the safety data sheet to me. I went through it and that's what I do for a business is train companies on understanding the chemical hazards and stuff like that. Going through it, I mean, it's a type of salt that just disrupts basically how the plant cells function. So it's not a toxic, it's not something, I don't even apply herbicides to my yard. But I would say me as a homeowner on the lake would have no problem with my children swimming in the lake, you know, a couple of days after application. It has a very short half-life. So I think it's a good option. One thing that I'd maybe ask Leah to do with public outreach is maybe reach out to, you know, Facebook posts or whatever, so landowners know not to cut the weeds so that it does get applied. Otherwise, their weeds will proliferate after everybody else's has been sprayed. So, my 2 cents.
Yeah, in doing some research, it does have a relatively short window of no swimming. From the research I read, it was like within 24 hours, it should be good. We are spraying this or applying it, or I should say Solitude is applying it when water temperatures are relatively low, meaning most people aren't going to be swimming at that time of the year anyway, because the water temperatures are cool.
Oh, out of there, Mike.
Yeah, it has relatively low toxicity to aquatic species and ducks based on the research, so a relatively safe product.
So if they're gonna apply this when the water temperature is relatively low, are they gonna be putting that pretty soon, or are we gonna do it next fall? Or?
It's when speaking with Erin at Solitude, she said, you know, by May 15th, they like to see this applied, so it'll be relatively soon. So they wanted to see this approved sooner than later.
Quicker the better to get it applied.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to see it. We don't want to try to kill it after it's up.
Okay, well, just be careful.
People looking at it.
Well, it will be significant. I mean, because of the way it was growing under clear ice, there'll be quite a bit of weeds already. Do we know, is it gonna kill it off in a sense where the weeds are really gonna mass and float? Do we have any idea on that, just to be prepared for it? I mean, it's.
I don't. I know there's a die off. I don't know if it's something that they sink to the bottom or float to the top. I don't have a lot of experience in spraying aquatic plants, so I don't have that answer, but I could get it for you. I could reach out to Erin, who works at Solitude.
Just something for us to be aware of, so that when people, if it is something that turns into a nuisance, that we communicate, just a short-term pain that we have to deal with to get rid of the problem. So.
Yep, I will make a note and I can send it out.
Is this something we gotta do every year?
We'll see.
I don't know.
Yes.
Okay.
I do want to point out from previous history, I wasn't with the district when they sprayed Pickerel Lake. But I do know that we had a curly leaf issue in Pickerel Lake, 13 years ago, and conducted a spraying, and that was very favorable. I think that comes from what the district wanted, and it was only a one-time spray.
Good. Any other discussion?
One more note I'd throw out there is that it's not fat soluble. It's not something that will, like for example, fish and other organisms swimming in there. It's not going to get into their organs and tissues. It's not something that
Bioaccumulates.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not. It doesn't pose any risk to fish or anything like that. Many herbicides with it.
Good. Any other discussion? Hearing none, Leo, please call roll.
Manager Bakken,
Aye.
Manager Hanson, Manager DeBoer, Manager Kramer,
Aye.
Manager Lee,
Aye.
Manager Kasuski,
Aye.
Manager Belcher.
Aye, motion carried.
Thank you. The next item is a motion to approve seed costs for the Hine restoration. In your bid packet, I received 2 quotes. This is going to seed only the upland portions, so we are in the process of working with an engineer to design wetland basins. However, we do not want this field to sit fallow for a whole year, so we're going ahead and seeding the upland areas of the site to get those native vegetation growing. We received 2 quotes. One was for $51,900.80, and the second was for $39,200. This is just for cost of seed. The next item is for contractors to install it. This is grant funded through Lessard Sams along with the rest of the wetland restoration. So looking for a motion to approve the Shooting Star quote for $39,200 to seed roughly 78 acres in the native prairie.
I have a motion. So moved. Manager Paczynski, do I have a second?
Second.
Manager Kramer, any discussion? Hearing none, will you please call roll?
Manager Bachman,
Aye.
Manager Hanson,
Aye.
Manager DeBoer,
Aye.
Manager Kramer,
Aye.
Manager Lee,
Aye.
Manager Paczynski,
Aye.
Manager Belcher.
Aye, motion carried.
Thank you. The next item is a motion to approve the seeding contractor. We received 2 quotes. And we are looking to approve the seeding cost of $39 per acre with Conservation Landscapes LLC to implement the seeding. They are also going to be seeding 2 other smaller sites that we have purchased through Lessard Sams that we are using Lessard Sams funding to do the restoration. So we're actually seeding 3 sites, but we already have the seed purchased for the 2 other sites that are that you see. So looking to get a couple of our properties seeded this spring.
Everhart?
Yep. That's correct.
It's the other one.
The Bryson site
Okay.
by Alden.
Yep.
And for those, we are working with the neighboring farmer to till those up so that they're, because those have been fallow a lot longer and there's more of a vegetation base there. So we're gonna work with the farmers to knock that down for us so that these seeders can come in. The Heinz site, they round bale the corn stalks, and so there's relatively little trash, so it's something that we can seed directly into.
Good. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
By Manager Hanson, do I have a second?
Second.
And Manager Lee, any discussion? Hearing none, will you please call roll?
Manager Bachman,
Aye.
Manager Hanson, Manager DeBoer,
Aye.
Manager Kramer,
Aye.
Manager Lee,
Aye.
Manager Paczynski,
Aye.
Manager Belcher.
Aye, motion carried.
Thank you. The next item is a motion to approve out-of-state travel for the Winnebago Watershed Planning Commission, not to exceed 6 trips. The state of Iowa is now doing something similar to our One Watershed, One Planning efforts where the state of DNR or the state of Iowa doesn't have like an MPCA, a DNR and a Bowser like Minnesota does. Everything is contained within the DNR itself and they have different divisions. So the DNR is offering out planning grants to watershed areas in the state of Iowa so that they can get funding to implement the plans. Being this is relatively new to them and they're not super familiar with the planning process, whereas Minnesota is, they asked us if we would be advisory committee members for their planning efforts. The water doesn't stop at the boundary of the state lines, it continues on, and so we want to do what we can to help Iowa as well. So they asked us to sit on that committee. Most of the meetings are via Zoom, so we don't have to leave, but there are a couple when they're planning on picking their consultants where they want the advisory committee members to actually be in Iowa to see. So that is where this request is stemming from. I envision it only being a couple times a year, but we're planning on doing the not to exceed 6 trips. So every time there is a meeting that I would have to go to Iowa, that I don't have to come back before the board and get out of state travel. It's not, most often it would probably be in like North Springs or Mason City would probably be the farthest, so it's not super far. But just want to make the board aware that there might be a couple of times that Andy or myself would be going to Iowa to serve as a technical advisory role for them.
Good. Good. Do I have a motion?
So
Manager DeBoer, do I have a second by Manager Bachman? Any discussion? Hearing none, will you please call roll?
Manager Bachman,
Aye.
Manager Hanson, Manager DeBoer,
Aye.
Manager Kramer,
Aye.
Manager Lee,
Aye.
Manager Paczynski,
Aye.
Manager Belcher.
Aye, motion carried.
Thank you. The last item is just a Fountain Lake Restoration, East Main Bay and Bancroft Bay update. We are still in limbo with the DNR. We have not received a permit. the latest discussions that we have had with the DNR is essentially accessibility to dredging the north side of the bay. They provided a limited channel, and that channel they are proposing to go on the west side of that little island that is in Bancroft Bay. We have constructability concerns in that area because if you actually look at aerial imagery from 38 and I think it's 62, it actually shows that that island is a peninsula. So there's very hard material there and it's going to be very difficult to get a dredge through there. So we are trying to connect with the DNR to get that channel to be on the east side, which is where the natural flow of the lake is. And we have not heard a response back. But as we were speaking at our agenda items or coming up, we do have a special board meeting coming up pertaining to this discussion. So nothing really more to give other than we are still trying to communicate with the DNR on access routes back here and other topics.
Keep pushing on.
Well, that channel that they proposed also does not appear to be navigable.
It is a very
Or findable for one thing.
it is a very narrow channel, and that's one thing that our engineers are doing a very good job of is trying to describe to the DNR that it is too narrow. I mean, we even have a dredge, there's draft and other, even just sloping. So the footprint that they gave us is simply not constructable or,
Right.
it's not something that we could implement the way they have it at currently
It's not
stated.
Utah, it's not practical. How do you find it with your boat?
Yeah, and we don't, to the best of my knowledge, we haven't received a permit yet, so it's not like we have that language in there. So we continue on.
I think we as a board need to start considering a moratorium that we no longer give land to the DNR for projects. We look at other entities like the US Fish and Wildlife Service and others that because just the nature of that relationship and the I'd say the unreasonable stance they've taken with this has cost our district a ton of money between phase 1, 2, and 3 for this red tape and bureaucracy. It's in my mind unacceptable. And I sat at our legislative date while Commissioner Stroman addressed us and flat out lied to our faces about the number of permits that they were closing out in a timely basis, which simply did not meet reality. So I think it's in our best interest as a district to look at a moratorium of that, giving land to the DNR like that.
And something we'll have to talk about at a later time, sure. We have limited options when it comes to that, if I'm not mistaken, as far as giving the land to Fish and Wildlife. They can only take so much, and same with the DNR, it's all the same. We have to have as many options as we can, because we don't want to own it ourselves.
Yeah, so it brings up a good point. If we have the land in our ownership, we're exempt from taxes, so we do not pay any taxes to the county when it comes to that, unless there's like a special assessment of a ditch on a parcel. However, if it's in DNR ownership, there is a pill payment, and with US Fish and Wildlife, there is trust fund payments. So yeah, I do, my personal opinion is I like public ground. I think it's available for everyone to utilize and resource. So I feel like we're hurting the public when we don't have ground open to them, but at the same time, we're hurting the public by not getting the dredging project complete as well. So it's a resource that people should be able to utilize and they currently can't because of its given state.
Okay. Anything else?
So all the updates I had?
What do you got? Okay. We'll go out on item 6, manager item.
Well, I got a couple. I went to the meeting down in Glendale last night for the battery storage facility down there. And they said they're gonna put in a couple holding ponds, like flood pond. These ponds that will be able to hold a 1-inch rainfall. And as you all know, what did we have last June? 13, just about 14 inches of rain in the month of June. And we don't, it's seems to be more and more, we're getting more of these big rains. So I don't feel that 1 inch, a pond to hold 1 inch of rain is really gonna do any good and probably be hard on the environment down there, so I propose that we send a letter asking them to look at deepening these ponds to make them deeper to hold more than a 1 inch rainfall. So what's the wishes of the board?
What's the purpose for the pond?
To keep water from blowing over the platform and getting toward, where the batteries are, they're gonna be closed. But still they're going, it's there. And there can be, for the cooling, they use like some type of gel, kind of like, antifreeze. So we don't want that, run down and run into the lake or shell rock either, so.
They're designed by a licensed person,
Yeah,
They were,
okay?
so
So we're questioning the
we're
credibility of
questioning,
the licensed engineer for designing these ponds.
well, what I'm saying is, we get more than 1 inch rainfall, where's this water?
So we are
This-
questioning.
Yes, we are,
Okay,
that'll be deeper ponds.
right,
But it wouldn't just be depth, it has to be able to have the bounce, the way that it, the meters the water back out again, so it's actually empty, so it'd be a lot more than just the depth of it.
well, we need to do something, because 1 inch rainfall, I'm gonna cut it.
Whose jurisdiction is it under?
That is a great question. I mean, we're not a permitting agency, so we don't have it, but as far as I know, it goes to the Public Utilities Commission for review and approval. And they, I believe, are the ones who have final approval.
So let's say that they have a plan, so if, say this coolant that does leak out and it goes to the pond.
Yeah, they have, on one side, they have gravel, or not gravel, a type of gravel, and it's supposed to go into that, and then they'll come in and clean it up. But you gotta remember underneath this gravel, the shore down around Glendale, it's pretty dang sandy down there.
Oh, definitely.
So if it gets down in Brooksville, it's gonna get into, if they don't get it cleaned up right away, it's gonna get down into the sand and then into the water table.
Well, they should have a liner in those.
Oh,
ponds,
they
so
sure
they
didn't
could
say
have
nothing. When I was there, I left a little bit early. I didn't hear anything about a liner, so,
groundwater issue
yeah,
for sure.
In industry, a lot of antifreezes, I don't know what this would be, but like excuse me, glycol, for example, is one that that's biodegradable quickly. It's used in food manufacturing a lot because it's not toxic. So it'd be interesting to know too, what is the antifreeze? Is it something that would be toxic or something that would be easily biodegradable?
Yeah, there's a lot of questions that, we don't get all that information and
yeah.
you just assume that somebody's taking care of it properly.
Oh, you hope they do.
Exactly. So I think down in Glenville, they've done a good job of doing their research
Yeah,
and looking everything over and asking the right questions, going to the right people. And there's nothing that we can do as far as a watershed. We have no power for any of that, so.
when it came, before I left, they did state that, we're talking about these ponds, that they were open to talk to the water commission, which were the watershed, to discuss how to build these ponds, so maybe it would be a good idea to send us. Maybe get a little discussion with them and talk about design and make sure that it'd be able to hold more than 1 inch event, because you're gonna get more than 1 inch of water events down there.
See, that's the problem. We're not engineers, so we can't really engineer a pond size for whatever
Okay.
reason. So I mean, we hire engineers to do that for us.
we can ask questions.
We do, but we can ask questions, we can, make sure that they're trying to do it the right way, that's.
Right.
That's what we're here for, to make they're doing things the right way, so we can clean up our water quality in our lakes and streams and not pollute them.
Okay. it's something that we can write up and send out for them?
Yep.
Okay, so do we need a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Manager Lee, do I have a second?
I got,
By Manager Pasuski, any discussion? Well, then we'll have Courtney write something up and send it into their questions and answer things or whatever it is.
Yep, I have the comment
Comment,
email that I can send it to. Is that something that you would like to come in and sign or? Once I have it
I
drafted?
can,
Okay,
yes.
this goes to PUC
uh,
as part of a comment period, or is that close?
do you have where it goes to? No, it goes to, I think it's the department.
There's a.
I think it's,
DSS.
do you have that document? It's the. I think it was on the second page who it gets into.
Read this.
No, it was the. It was listed in that, the one that had the map.
Minnesota Department of Commerce.
Yes, that one. Yep.
Larry Hartman?
You found the page faster than I did.
Good name?
No, you sent it to Jim Sullivan
Jim Saul.
at the Minnesota Department of Commerce.
They actually work with the Public Utilities Commission.
Yep, so they are just overseeing all of the comments that are received during the period that it's open.
You know, I think we just need to voice our concerns as far as the ponds and, you know, liners and whatever else and what the ground is like over there as far as being sandy and how well that's going to filter out back close to the river.
Can do.
So I had a first and I had a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, will you please call roll?
Manager Bakken,
Aye.
Manager Hanson, Manager DeBoer,
Aye.
Manager Kramer,
Aye.
Manager Lee,
Aye.
Manager Pasuski,
All right,
Manager Belcher.
Aye, motion carried to submit a letter to
Thank
in
you,
our support.
thank you.
Okay, all right.
And second of all, I went to the watershed county board meeting last week and already talked about the AIS funding that they approved. And they had a public hearing, a preliminary hearing for over in Hayward Township for county roads for county ditch 32. And they talked about that, they appointed the viewers, and I can't remember all of them, I know Mark Barrett was one of them. And I know Mark, so they'll be viewing that, coming up with a petition for the improvements. Let's see, that's probably what I got for notes. That is, the SSTS grant funding, they approved that for this year. So you can get for like between 7,500 and 10,000 for people who need in the area to use septic tanks, so. That's about all I got for you.
Anything else? Any other manager items?
Manager Pawlowski and I attended the Minnesota Watersheds, our meeting a few weeks back to update the procedure for the resolutions, and I did that passed unanimously, hardly even no dissent on it, so I think that's gonna be a good process for us. After that was the ISG future cycle, it's like